if you'll excuse me just for a moment, and I mean that literally. Adrian, in 1 minute, 60 seconds, I have something very important to announce to the tens and tens of people who are watching. No matter what I'm doing, interrupt me so I can make the announcement. 1 minute.
Awesome. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. There's a debate going on these days, and frankly, I just don't get it. It seems to me that the Bible couldn't be more clear if it had intended to be, and I think it actually did. You see, Genesis 1:1 begins with "in the beginning," which I think means in the beginning, and then God, as if to make the point that he created the joint in 6 24-hour days, says day 1, the evening and the morning. Day 2, the evening and the morning. Day 3, etc., the evening and the morning. 6 24-hour days. Not that long ago, this entire universe spoken into existence ex nihilo, also out of nothing. The Bible is clear on the subject, and yet so many people, I do believe, bowing to what they believe to be the authority of evolutionary science, historical science, interpreting what happened a gazillion years ago by looking at a toe bone of a dinosaur. We've decided, we better figure out a way to make the Bible appear to match evolutionary historical science. And we've come up with all different types of translations and variations, a day age, a gap theory, to make the Bible say what it clearly does not. And the implications of that are rather significant.
We end up with enormous problems if we try to interpret an historical fall and understand an historical fall in an old earth rendering. This is most clear when it comes to Adam's sin. Was it true that, as Paul argues, when sin came, death came? Well, just keep in mind that if the earth is indeed old, and we infer that it is old because of the scientific data, the scientific data is also there to claim that long before the emergence of Adam, if indeed there is the recognition of an historical Adam, and certainly long before there was the possibility of Adam's sin, there were all the effects of sin that are biblically attributed to the fall and not to anything before the fall. And we're not only talking about death, we're talking about death by the millions and billions.
The issue is Adam. The issue is sin. The Bible states God created a perfect world, no sin, no death, and then Adam, our federal head, he took a tumble, and all of creation went with it and introduced sin and death in that order. If we believe that the Bible presents an old age concept, then we've got ourselves a challenge. Why does the fossil record appear to include so much sin and death before the fall? And in fairness, there are evangelicals who would say that's because you're confused about Romans chapter 5. When Adam fell, he didn't die physically. It was just a spiritual death that was promised.
Some who hold to an old earth in dealing with this question suggest that what Paul is actually talking about, what the Scripture claims, is that when sin came, spiritual death came. But I would suggest to you that that is a very difficult claim to reconcile over against the totality of Scripture. And the whole idea that before there could be humanity, and certainly before there could be Homo sapiens, and before there could be Adam, and before there could be sin, there would be all the effects of sin written backwards. Let me just point out in the first place that no Christian reading the Scripture alone would ever come to such a conclusion. Ever.
Plain reading, plain understanding. To make the Bible say what it doesn't really appear to say takes a great deal of hermeneutical gymnastics.
It comes with very serious intellectual entanglements. It is actually difficult, as is reflected by the fact that the contemporary conversation in terms of the age of the earth is requiring a redefinition of who Adam was. Interestingly, as I've looked at this question, I've been surprised, quite frankly, to see how many older evangelicals had already seen this and come to terms with it. In his commentary in the book of Romans, John Stott actually suggests that Adam was an existing hominid that God adopted in a special way, and out of Homo sapiens, God implanted his image, made Adam particularly in his image by ensouling him and creating in Adam not only Homo sapiens, but Homo divinus. Let's just imagine for a moment what that would theologically require. It requires that there were Homo sapiens who were not the image bearers of God. It requires an adoptionistic understanding of Adam rather than special creation of Adam.
John Stott, not the only theologian who has to take the Bible and import ideas that the Bible itself never presents.
Dennis Alexander, in his new book, Creation or Evolution, Do We Have to Choose? A fellow at Cambridge University suggests, and I quote here, that God in his grace chose a couple of Neolithic farmers to whom he chose to reveal himself in a special way, calling them into fellowship with himself so that they might know him as a personal God. Now, is that in any way a possible, legitimate, exegetical reading of Genesis? That God chose a couple of Neolithic farmers? What haunts me about that book is not just the contents of the book, but what is on its front cover, a blurb from J.I. Packer, who says, surely the best informed, clearest, and most judicious treatment of the question and title that you can find anywhere today.
When we return,
Hold on. You wanted me to interrupt you in a minute.
one
Right.
minute, 60 seconds.
Right.
7 minutes later. It's been
Right, but
420
I knew
seconds.
you meant 7 minutes by the 1 minute.
I said 1 minute.
No, and then plus in between when you said 1 minute and 60 seconds, there's a little gap there. I don't know how much time you meant by that little gap either.
And if you think that's ridiculous, some evangelistic booklets are too squishy, some are too strong, some are too short, some are too long. Don't stub your toe, it's just right. In other words, this is the gospel booklet that has been endorsed by the Baby Bear. You can get your copies to give to people you know who are not saved at wretched.org.